If you are planning to apply for a PhD program, you are probably getting advice from dozens of students, professors, administrators, your parents, and the internet. Sometimes it's very hard to know which advice to focus on and what will make the biggest difference in the long run. Here is the interview with one of the PhD students within the Research School of Chemistry, Australian National University ANU, who just had his end of term seminar, and you might find his story helpful to make a better decision as you embark on that path to a PhD.
PhD, well, I never really had any ambitions to do a PhD initially. When I first started uni, I guess I was just looking to get my degree and start working. But I got a little bit of a taste for research in my third year when I did a project, and that made me move on to do honours. And I had a really great experience in honours, and with the whole research experience and everything that goes with it, particularly the freedom that you get with your own research project. And a PhD after that just sort of made sense. I probably moved here mostly for the university rather than Canberra specifically, but having been down here for just over 3 years now and moving from Sydney, it was quite a change, but I would say that the change is something that's been really nice. The style and the pace of life here is a little bit slower than what it would be in Sydney, and it's been nice to experience that sort of different lifestyle. But it's very much, I'm here for the ANU and I'm here for what the ANU has to offer. A PhD, in my mind, is still a big learning experience. You're still a student, you're classified as a student, and so trying to expose yourself to as many techniques and as many different styles of doing science to find what works for you and to find what's a better option for you is probably of paramount importance when you're looking at navigating your way through the PhD. So I think I agree with that statement, mostly to the fact that you're still a student, you still got a lot to learn, you come in, you don't know everything. At the end, hopefully you know a bit more than you did at the start, but particularly getting a diverse feel for how different people think and how different people do science and what they do to achieve their end goal and their objective in science is probably more of a better outcome for a PhD. At least that's what I've found over the last 3 years. If I went back, would I do a PhD? Yes. Yes, I would do it again. I feel like it's been a really good experience, and I look at myself 3 years ago and think about how far I've come, and the personal growth along with the scientific growth and your training and your thought processes that are associated with science, but also the way you see the world and the way you see yourself and how you fit into it, I suppose, has definitely changed as I've progressed through the last 3 years. So yeah, I have no regrets in terms of undertaking a PhD, and definitely would do it again. Yeah, so when I originally did an honours project, which was back in Sydney, it was associated with neurodegenerative disease, and I have a significant interest in that because it runs in the family, and so I really wanted to work on something related to things like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease, things that are inherently associated with something called protein aggregation. And while I was looking for a new supervisor for my PhD project, I came across John Carver, who's here at the Research School of Chemistry at ANU, and his line of work, working on these molecular chaperone proteins, these small heat shock proteins that are associated with stopping this protein aggregation, and hence might have a role in preventing these diseases of Alzheimer's and Parkinson's that are related to protein aggregation. That was really interesting to me, and sort of finding out how these guys worked and how they did what they did, and most importantly, why they stopped doing what they're meant to be doing with regards to the disease. That was really interesting to me, and so that's sort of why I ended up here and why I started talking to John in the first place, and how I ended up in the Carver lab specifically. Yeah, that's an interesting question. The most obvious choice, as you mentioned, is teaching, and whether that's taking tutorials or demonstrating. I was lucky enough to be a RSC Teaching Fellow, and had 2.5 years of tutoring and demonstrating, and even some lecturing in the bridging course. And that's been really great for broadening my scope in terms of my teaching ability, and in terms of particularly communication, which helps in science, getting a message across, talking to people that might not necessarily know what you're talking about, and making sure you understand what they do and don't know, and how you can then speak to them in such a way that helps them to grasp what you're talking about. So making something simple is a big part of, I think, being in your PhD, and I think helping yourself to achieve that by teaching and demonstrating is a huge part. And a lot of people look upon that favourably for both the teaching ability and your communication skills that you can then use within your science. I think the ANU, particularly RSC here, has some great programs where they hire students and to either work in the mass spec facilities or help with X-ray crystallography or NMR or technical lab situations. And so if students can sort of get into those roles as well, I think it really helps their not only their understanding, but also to show their diversity of skills. And so I think helping to volunteer and helping to teach and basically get involved in the activities of the school all help to boost your resume beyond just being a research scientist. Yeah, definitely do something that you love. You have to find something you're truly interested in and passionate in, because there's going to be jubilant highs and crushing lows, and to navigate your way through those crests and troughs, you need to be sustaining yourself with the passion of what you're studying and how interested you are in it, and wanting to know the answer and trying to find the answer. And I think that is the primary piece of advice that I would give someone wanting to undertake a PhD. Look for something that you're interested in, follow your passion, and even when things aren't going the right way, you'll still have the motivation and the strength to keep pursuing your end goal. Yeah, a lot of people have been asking me that lately. I'm going to be honest and say I'm still not sure. I've got to produce my thesis now, and it has to go be examined, and hopefully in that process I publish some papers, which is certainly going to help if I want to maintain a research profile. So you know, one of the options is go and continue research and be a postdoc, potentially overseas. Probably be a good experience for a few years. A couple of other options are to pursue my interest in teaching. I've sort of got several different avenues that I could take with regard to that, whether that might be a high school level or even a tertiary level. And probably another idea is perhaps to move into industry or even public service and use the skills that I've got from a PhD here at the RSC and sort of translate those into another type of work environment, which I know that a scientific skill set, given that you're using analytical skills and also trying to communicate often technical information to a sort of uninitiated audience, is very handy in a lot of different corporate and public service-based settings. So I've got a couple of different ideas, but I probably don't have the the definite answer yet. Maybe ask me again in 6 months. I said I'm going to be wandering around. I can't keep my feet planted. All right, want to test to see if the sound is working today. And Albie's hair is very distracting. What's up? It's good? Yeah, this is good too. Should get an ANU cup, really. It's not very professional.
To the side, I'm going to ask the last question.
All right.
For the last question,
You don't know what the question is?
no,
Jeez, this is a bad interview.